Frank, tell me if you can hear me now.
You're a little bit, sound like you're underwater a little bit.
Okay, I'll try and speak up because I think this is possibly the best device I've got at my disposal right now, I'm afraid.
Okay, can hear you now. Just kind of speak slowly and I think we'll be okay.
Okay, and I'll apologise for the accent now.
I love the accent.
So give me an overview of how one actually gets involved with a movie on this scale. How did you first hear about it? Who did you first talk to? What were the first agreements?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know even that the movie was being made, and I was down in Louisiana shooting a film with Statham, one of your countrymates, and I got a phone call, and they said, "Do you want to? They want to fly you up to L.A. to speak to the Russo brothers." And no script, and they flew me up to L.A. and we sat down with some of the guys from Marvel and the Russos who were big fans of the Gray, and I said, "Sign me up. It sounds fantastic." And that was the beginning.
And what was talked about in that meeting?
They asked me a lot of questions about myself, and they talked about what they wanted to do with this film and what direction the Captain America story was headed, and what my character and what my place would be, and that it was an origin film, and the story would be told over a couple of movies, and I was intrigued from the beginning. I love the Russo brothers. I love their energy, and the guys from Marvel were just they're fans of their own movies, which is just fantastic. So I was excited from the beginning.
And how did you feel about Marvel films beforehand? Were you a fan, or?
I have 3 sons, and I'm a fan through proxy because
Right.
they're superhero fanatics. I mean, I have spent every dollar I have in every toy store around New York, buying all kinds of superhero paraphernalia.
Right.
Because of my boys, I've become a fan, but I didn't grow up with comic books or, I was really into sports and never really was in the house very much. So it's an interesting thing for me to relive this with my kids.
So when you were knew you were going to do this, I mean, obviously you have to be incredibly physically fit, but you seem to be physically fit in every role you're playing. I mean, I saw you in the Purge yesterday, and you look like a muscle. I mean, basically just like a walking muscle.
I'm not very big. I'm only about 5'10" and a half, and I'm about 170 pounds. But I am fit. I don't say that as a place of hubris, but my whole life has been about fitness, and I've boxed for the past 20 years.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu. I was a collegiate wrestler. I played football. I mean, my whole life has been about being healthy and fit. And so it's funny that in my later years here, I'm maybe like Liam Neeson, I'm being recognized as being kind of this guy who's strong and can do these kind of things. And to me, it's a combination of 2 of the greatest things that I love, which is acting and working out. So
right.
I've hit the jackpot.
Now, to me, The Winter Soldier is quite a political film. Do you think it's a political film?
I do. I mean, I think it's like some of those Sidney Lumet movies that we love from the 70s, and 3 Days of the Condor, and it was a political film. I mean, when you look at Redford and what he was trying to do in the movie, and even my character, people say, "How do you like being bad, being evil?" I'm like, I'm not evil. I don't see myself. I see it as being on one side of a political ideology.
Yes.
And so I don't see myself as being evil. I see myself being true to what I believe in. And that you look back in history, and even the most terrible times in our history, when you had the Nazi regime, I don't know that those guys thought they were evil. I think they thought they were doing something good for themselves, and they weren't. They were the most atrocious people. There's Genghis Khan. All of the people in history that have committed these great atrocities didn't think they were evil themselves.
It would be impossible to do what they did otherwise, I think.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I agree with you, and I've done a lot of reading about it. And, it was fascinating to learn how these these people were blinded by certain prejudices and ideals, and they did crazy things. So that's how I kind of approached it.
But there's always a way when you're on a certain sort of side of the film's message, because the film doesn't ultimately agree with your character.
Right.
There's this sort of tension there where, you know, you yourself as Frank Grillo must in some sense be signed up to what the film means, and then you've got to give over this sort of part of your mind to the role play in the opposite direction.
It's true, and you cannot come into any acting scenario and take on any character and judge the character based on your own feelings towards the character. You can't do that. Otherwise, there's no honesty in it. So you have to go in it and you have to understand the circumstances and you have to believe, through and through. There's a great saying where the mind goes, the body follows. You have to convince yourself that you're doing the right thing as this character, and otherwise, it just doesn't come out so good. And I think that's why the Captain America film did come out so good. That everybody brought their A game to this thing, and was quite convincing, I thought. And the story was paced well and told in an interesting way.
And with this film, and again the Purge, it seems to me every time I go and see a film that some people might dismiss as a popcorn film, there are people that are making statements with these films now, and they're really they're quite profound in their way. Is it just a coincidence you're ending up in these, or is it important to you that your films sort of mean something?
It's not a coincidence at all. That's really a great question. As I get a little more ability to choose projects as opposed to just having to say yes to everything. When I met with James DeMonico about The Purge, and I didn't see the first movie, but I loved the idea. I loved thinking about a world where we've become so violent and so inclined to kill each other that we would have to, implement a law like this, a holiday that would have us killing each other. And there are parts of the world where there is a purge, where, Darfur, where there is genocide and people killing each other, and because they don't believe that they should exist on the earth.
Yes.
And so, we need to, why are Americans so obsessed with guns and violence? We all see the same films around the world. We all play the same video games. But why in my country, in our country, do people go into schools and kill children? It needs to be explored. And this film, yes, it's a summer movie, but if you do walk away, I believe, just kind of scratching your head. The first question everyone asks is, do you think there's a world where we'd actually do this in the future? And if you're asking that question, that means you're wondering what this world is about, as far as violence and gun.
Yes.
So it is by design that I choose these roles.
So have the Russos, they promised you that they bring you back. Do you know why? Do you know to what end you'll be coming back? I don't mean in sort of narrative terms, but I mean in terms of what the point of the character is, in a sense.
Yeah, they don't do anything for for it to go nowhere.
Yes.
And so to know the story based on the comics, and to know where Rumlow goes from being Rumlow to being Crossbones, and what part he plays in the fall of Captain America, that's kind of the way they talked about it and how they were kind of outlining it. Now, that being said, I don't know what the script is. I think they're still in the middle of writing it.
Yes.
There's a lot of characters, so like I keep saying, I'm cautiously optimistic that it'll be something really great.
I should hope so. There's a good track record.
Yeah, I would be, it's something I'm really looking forward to. So, and I have a great relationship with the Russos, and I talk to them all the time. So, I feel good about it.
Now, I'm really curious about something logistical here, and I don't know if you can explain it, but when you do get put on one of these multi-movie contracts, how far ahead have you got to give them your information? If you got to go and consult with Marvel now before you sign up for anything else to just make sure they don't want you on those dates?
Yeah, you do. You sign on to a 4 or 6 picture deal, and I'm in the middle of doing a 10 episode television series for cable network here. I did a movie called Warrior about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes.
Very similar to that, and I loved it, and I wanted to do it. And we had to clear it with Marvel. We had to make sure it was okay. Same thing with The Raid, or any other film I do. You have to clear it with them to make sure it doesn't interfere with their dates.
Now, this is interesting. Have you sat down with Patrick Hughes yet?
Oh yeah, me and Patrick sat down from day one. We sat down with a bottle of tequila, and we were two kindred spirits. He's like every great friend and director that I know. The Carnahans and the Gavin O'Connors and the David Ayers.
Right.
He's the guy's guy, and we've become instant friends. He just came back from Malaysia. He was scouting, and I love this guy. I mean, I love this guy, and I look forward to working with him.
Red Hill is exceptional, I think.
Yeah. They sent me a reel of all the directing every great movie star, action star in the Expendables 3, and they did a testimony to this guy. When I tell you, every one of these guys were falling over themselves, saying how amazing this kid was, and that he was the next great thing because of how he handled everybody. So it's it's a true testament to the kid.
But why I mean, I can understand why something like Captain America would be translated from the page because it's changing medium. But the Raid, I'm sort of, as much as Patrick's obviously putting together a great cast, and I think he's fantastic, I kind of wish he'd just do something original in a way, really, because we've already got the Raid.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I can say again as much as I can say, but you know what? It is a remake, but it's a different movie.
Right.
And you're right, it's a risk. I'm not saying it isn't a risk, and I think Sony even knows it's a risk because that first movie is beloved by the people who, are true fans of it.
Yes.
And you don't ever remake The Shining, and it's been remade, right?
Yes.
It wasn't remade well, but so you have to really, and this is why I think they, instead of shooting in September, they pushed it to January. They really want to be meticulous with what we shoot, how we shoot it, who trains. You got to get people who really can train and fight and be very specific in the style of fighting. So it's a long process to get to the set. And I respect them for taking their time, and that's why I say hopefully it goes next year and it doesn't interfere with Captain 3, because then I could run into problems.
Yes. You need somebody really smart to run your calendar for you, Frank, I think. But you say he's scouting in Malaysia, and obviously there's a lot of Americans in the cast. Again, this thing immediately sounds politically loaded.
Yeah, I know. It kind of is. And, and the cast, I know you've probably heard rumors of who's in the cast, and I got to be honest with you, I don't know who else is cast. People have fallen in and fallen out.
Right.
So forth, but I know me. I know. We got an official offer, and I know they've been talking to Mackie, but I don't know who else is signed on to the movie. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, he was in Malaysia, and it's no secret. I mean, he was tweeting all kinds of pictures.
Yes.
But yeah, it is. Again, it's another film that is loaded.
What haven't you done that you want to do?
I would love to jump on stage again. That's what I would love to do. But as far as filmmaking, I got to tell you, I'm having a great time. And my good pal Leon Neeson actually told me to enjoy this because he came later in his life too. He's like, Frank, I didn't expect to be an action star or in action films at my age. But he said, have a great time. And I have to tell you, I'm so excited that people are considering me for the kind of roles they are, because I get to kind of, like The Purge, you turn the genre upside down a little bit, because you're not just an action guy or this guy. You're somebody who's thinking and drawing the audience in and creating ideas and being physical. And I want to kind of just continue to go down that road if I can. See where it takes me. Yeah.
It just popped in my head there when you're saying something. Did you and DeMonico ever talk about Batman? Because your character in The Purge is like a realistic Batman in a sense.
We did talk about Batman. That's a great. Nobody's asked me that question. We talked about Batman a lot. In fact, the way I dress, the way we designed that coat that I wear in the film, and the way my hair is, and the beard, and I don't say much. I cut a lot of the dialogue, so I felt like he shouldn't talk so much. I never wanted to. In the beginning of the film, in one script, I was telling them my name. I said, no, I don't want anybody to know who I am. I don't even want the audience to know my name. And DeMonico and I were immediately on the same page. We referenced movies like Death Wish and Warriors and Escape from New York. And
Yes.
Stuff like that. Outlaw Josie Wales was a huge influence. That journey of revenge and righting a wrong, and then at the end having a great existential kind of change of heart. So yeah, we had real deep philosophical questions, and Batman was always also on the forefront of character-wise.
And this will have to be the last question.
Well, if I'm running out, one thing I want to tell you, Frank, actually, it's not a question, just something that calls back to something we said earlier. There's a great British comedy sketch by a comedy duo called Mitchell and Webb, in which they play two Nazis coming to the sudden realisation that they're the bad guys.
Right.
You've got to go and look this thing up, because it speaks to what you were saying. If you put, like, Mitchell Webb Nazis into YouTube, you must see it.
I will. Mitchell Webb Nazis. Okay, somebody told me about this, but I'm going to look it up.
You must. You've given me a lot of great stuff today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for listening, pal.
Cheers. Bye-bye.